14 hours ago,
Yeah.
I was officially put in charge of everything.
Okay.
So
So,
in the independent banned media, where there's a lot of QAnon supporters and Christians, patriots, and all that, people like John McKay, Charles Ward, Robert David Steele, Mel K, that's a woman, Amazing Polly. You see a lot of these people. Ed Long, and our website features them a lot, and they were all generally saying that March 4th, over the last couple of months, March 4th would be a day where Trump would do something pretty amazing,
yeah.
because the January 20th inauguration day that Biden used has only been in operation since after the 40s, after Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was president from like 33 to 45. He died in 45. So maybe Truman was the first president to have inauguration day on January 20th, whereas it always had been traditionally March 4th.
So it's always been March 4th, but for some reason this year it was on the 20th. So my question to you is that
no. Let me finish explaining it.
okay, sorry.
So since post FDR, say Truman, Harry Truman, the America was more of a corporation. They used to call it the U.S. corporation, and everybody was an employee.
Yeah.
Of if you were a so-called citizen, you were an employee of the U.S. corporation. Well, over the last few years, people, maybe before Trump and Trump, have dismantled the U.S. corporation aspect of our situation. So when Biden, the unelected president, the cheating president, came in, he was forced to use the traditional U.S. corporation date, January 20th, which didn't apply anymore because the U.S. corporation had been dismantled, according to some of these sources I've already cited, so that Biden was not allowed to inaugurate on the new date, March 4th, which would be a retrieval to the first, 20 presidents or something since George Washington in 1790 or so. So if Trump had won, he would have been inaugurated. Well, he did win, but the media decided he didn't win, and they said, and so he would have been inaugurated on March 4th, they think, because of this new situation where we're post-U.S. corporation. We have been liberated, in essence, supposedly, and so Trump didn't. So everybody's predicting that Trump, watch him from January 20th till March 4th. Watch what he's doing. He's laying back. He's in a good mood. He's getting ready to be inaugurated in a new situation on March 4th. Well, it turned out it wasn't about him at all. And I found out yesterday, halfway through the day, that I was being inaugurated. I was in charge as of midnight, 14 hours ago. So I'm in charge, and now I have to figure out what that means, what the implications are. Because another point is, this is the most terrifying point, humans don't have grace protecting them anymore. Grace, people would imagine angels protect me, God protects me, prayer protects me. Well, it's all been canceled as of 14 hours ago. We're in a period of no more grace. You've got to figure out how to ascend on your own, or with whatever advice you get from somebody that you trust or respect. So this is a new situation. It's almost a condition of anarchy. And me, being sort of an anarchist at appropriate times, is qualified to handle this situation. How to be a leader of anarchy and spiritual desperation and pain and suffering. We are in the tribulations, the legendary tribulations of the book of Revelation. So that's the big picture, and that's what happened to me today so far. So I'm happy to announce this for the first time on your show to my colleagues in the audience of different races, creeds, and nations.
Okay, so this is one thing why I love talking to you, and we do it every other Friday, and there's always some things that is very like left field, right? You know, we say things and it's like what the fuck is this man talking about? And that's why I love having you on the show, because it gives like an imbalance to a world that people think is balanced, right? And like you said, I'm all ears. I'm open to everything. And like I said, anybody that's on this show, Bob is speaking what he speaks, right? You know, I'm not saying I agree or I don't agree. I'm just in the middle. And I'm here and we're having this show just for a funnel for people to hear what he's saying. And if the shit that he's saying makes you feel a certain way, hang up off the show. The show ain't for you. And if you do like the stuff he's saying, stay on and be more intrigued. And I also want to state a PSA that this is not at all some type of political show where we are red, we're blue, left or right. We're just freedom of speech, and people are free to say what they want, and there's no judgment here. So I just want to state that. So I want to get back to Bob, you telling me that you are now have become in charge. Who made you in charge?
Dickie Dobbs.
Got it. Okay, so
My
Dickie
brother.
Dobbs. Okay, your brother is. Okay.
We're always suspicious of him. He could be setting me up. Don't assume that I'm naive about all this stuff. I appear to be taking orders. That's okay. But Dickie Dobbs is a tricky Dickie kind of phenomenon. So Dickie announces, look, he says right there, we did.
Yeah.
Dick Dobbs.
And for everybody that sees Dickie Dobbs in this chat right now on this show, the greatest show on earth, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to say whatever you want. Once again, this is a podcast with open minds, and a lot of shit that you will hear here may sound totally crazy.
We're not gonna hear shit.
Oh, I forgot. I can't use that word. A lot of stuff you will hear tonight will probably sound very crazy, but that's what it's about. I think we have to open up our mental capacity to hear things from a different perspective. You know, we watch the news all day, we do these things, and we don't know what is what. So I'm going to get back to you, Bob. If you are now in charge, as you say you are, what does that mean for the rest of the world?
Well, I like the idea that you can have power or authority. If you go for authority, you're going to lose your power. So people like Hitler or Mao Zedong, anybody, generally Napoleon, they go for authority once they're in power, and they've gotten powers one way or another, and then they start trying to be an emperor. And that's okay to be an emperor if you don't impose it as an authority of doctrine and morals and how people should live. So I intend to enact my present situation in the world of power, not authority. So don't come looking to me for support for your picadillos and moral preferences and biases and cultural memes. That's not the kind of leadership I'm offering.
Got it. Okay.
And you know, as I look at your shirt, I see MSM, and there's some I's, IMSIM, but MSM said of Jack, you got mainstream media on you.
You know what's funny, Bob? This actually, it does look like an S, but this is my college jersey, my first college jersey in 2005. This is my parents. I have it's my last 3 days here. I'm going back to the West Coast on Monday. So we found all my college jerseys. So today I decided for March Madness, which is, the time that, all the college basketball teams play basketball, I decided to wear my Miami jersey, MIAMI. And it's funny that it looks like MSM. and that's very funny because like you said, everything in this world is all perspective.
Ratios.
And ratios. Well, explain what you mean by ratios. Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Here's a great sentence. The dynamic symmetry of tensions among proportions. So people have natural tensions and releases, but it's always in proportion to conditions interior or external. So the symmetry, the balanced symmetry, and active symmetry as well as balance, of tensions among proportions yields the golden section in space or time. Think of that. Look
Okay,
up the golden section.
I need you to repeat that one more time for the people in the back, because
Right.
I think I hear what you're saying, but I need to hear it one more time. Can you please repeat what you said about ratio?
Yeah. So what you have is the phrase golden section. That's what the sentence leads to. So look up golden section.
Your brother said, "What the fuck does all that babble mean?"
What Dick is a
Yeah.
pre-verbal kind of baby.
Golden what? What am I looking up? Golden what?
Golden section, 2 words. SECTION.
So golden section is the golden ratio. So this means the golden ratio is called the golden mean or golden section. Other names include extreme and mean ratio. In mathematics, 2 quantities are in the golden ratio if their ratio is the same as the ratio of their sum to the larger of the 2 quantities. So are you trying to say that ratio is something that people juxtapose of what they already know or what they see, that they've seen their whole life? So if I think that, something is a certain way and I've been privy to understand that and know things that way, I'm always going to take something in and juxtapose it or look at it from that position of me knowing. Is that what you're saying?
Good point. Think of what you know, what you've been conditioned by. You're a figure in a ground. The ground is your environment, your family, your school, your situation, your class, whatever, that molded you as a figure. So for you, basketball was a ground in your life that made you Jack today, a post-basketball player, but basketball led to where you are today. So you have a figure ground, and then you take another figure ground, me. Okay, what am I a figure of? What's my ground? Well, my ground is quite a secret life. So as Jack is to basketball, I am in the secret life. I am molded by the secret life, my background. See, so 2 ratios, Jack to basketball, me to secret life. Now, are they equal or not? Well, it depends. You're now got a show, you're a public figure in the information world. I'm like that too. I'm an information creator. Let's say Jack is retired from basketball, his ground. I'm retired from old forms of authority, the Secret Council of 10, for example.
In the CIA.
Yes, well, higher than the CIA.
Okay. Let's take a little tidbit to the side. So the Secret Council of 10 is higher than the CIA. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
So explain to me what the secret, don't tell me what you did. I don't want to hear none. We can't say none of that shit. I just want to know, what is the Secret Council of 10, this group that you were a part of? What is the Secret Council of 10?
If you look up in the history of Venice, the city in Italy, you will see that before the printing press, which is a big marker I bring up a lot, before the printing press, say from 1100 AD, or I think they call it CE, the Common Era, but they used to call it AD. So 1100 years after Jesus was born, to 1600, Venice, small little city-state, was positioned at a key place in the Mediterranean Sea. So a lot of commerce between the city-states and civilizations around the Mediterranean Sea interacted with Arabia or Araby, what we know as the Middle East today. So this trade back and forth, Venice was very crafty in being in the center of the factions in the East and the West, Middle East and Europe. So Venice played off everybody in that situation, even though it's just a small city-state. So it was considered the most powerful city-state or the most authoritative in that period before the printing press. After the printing press, the position shifted to another little place, Britain, United Kingdom, and the financial district known as the city. A lot of the Venetians realized they had to leave the Mediterranean ground of maritime business and move to the Atlantic Ocean because the new world was being opened up. So they picked Amsterdam first in the 1500s, and then they moved gradually to London, especially when William of Orange invaded Canada peacefully. I mean, Canada invaded London peacefully, or the oligarchy in London wanted William of Orange to take over. So in 1688, he moved in, and his court took over London, and they set up the Bank of England in 1694. And that was the beginning of a new central power position and authority after battles with France and other European countries. But basically, Britain won that after 1763. They won that position, and they were this little place that had to play off Russia against Germany, Germany against the Netherlands or Spain, because that's all you can do when you're a little place, a small power like Venice had been, and then Britain, London took over. So that oligarchy, we can say, in England went back to 1100 to 1000. There's one or two families in Venice that could go back to Roman times, the time of Jesus. So they were the habitual rulers of different setups with different kings and queens and dictators all through those centuries. The leftover of that in the 20th century was the Secret Council of 10. Now, at the end of World War I, the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed. They sided more with Germany, and Germany lost in 1918. So Britain and France and America took over and created the League of Nations, and a new attempt to have, in a way, a world government, at least on the level of authority, not necessarily power. Power was still secret in the financial areas. As Britain, so a lot of the aristocrats and oligarchy of Europe who were part of the Secret Council of 10 lost their power in the 1920s, and America surfaced. The symbol for American power was the Rockefellers and the Morgans. So they started to create an international empire and started to fight in the Middle East over the oil powers, or the Arabian.
Question for you. How did the Rockefellers and the Morgans just become this family where they're in control or have some type of position of authority because the power wasn't there yet? How does this happen? Because where does this come from? Why are Rockefellers and the Morgans? Oh, so they had access to the oil. Yeah,
so they started discovering oil in North America and other places, and the oil gave them a new leverage because that involved new technologies like the automobile. So,
okay, got it.
Right. Okay. So but the oligarchy, the traditional oligarchy of Europe, is almost a pre-industrial based power. So as the 20th century became more technologized with cars and airplanes, the Secret Council of 10 had to sit on the sidelines from, say, 1922 to 1980. 60 years.
60 years. They were on the sidelines. But they were there, though. They were still there. They didn't really say much. They were just observing on the sideline, watching the Rockefellers, watching the Morgans, watching all these people in a position of authority, how they were carrying it. But they weren't saying much.
That's right. Okay. They basically were just keeping up on new developments to see if there'd be an opening, an opportunity for them to come in and be more obviously in charge.
Got it.
So now what the Rockefellers did starting in the 30s, and we'll call it the Wall Street cabal, is they started lending money all over the world, and they set up influence that way. They put the world on a welfare state situation, subject to American.
Okay, wait. So the Rockefellers at this point, they've discovered oil, and then what they did with their position of authority in the oil business, they started loaning money to other people to basically become leverage and say, look, we loaned you money, so we loaned you this money, you got to do what we say. Right. Is that kind of what we're saying? Okay, got it.
Yeah. Now, why did they get to loan money? Is that a lot of Europe was devastated at the end of World War I. Germany and Britain and France, they all had to rebuild their societies, and they needed money to do that.
Time out. World War I killed their societies. World War I fucked up Germany with the war, so they had nothing. So the Rockefellers like, look, y'all ain't got shit. We're going to give you some bread to rebuild your country, but you're going to have to owe us X, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Got it. Okay.
So Britain, even though they nominally won, they were very weakened, and that included the oligarchy. So my parents worked for a oligarchic member of the Priory of Sion. That's the technical term, Priory of Sion. But I always called it Secret Council 10 because that's what the Venice structure in 1400 was called. They were called a Star Chamber. The elite would decide who would be justifiably assassinated or not. You know, so the popular image that the CIA or Putin or secret intelligence agencies will kill you if you get a little pushy is what actually, and it's kind of happening in the 20th century, is a retrieval of the way Venice Secret Council 10 ruled. Okay?
Got it.
What Marshall McLuhan called the James Bond world. You remember those movies, James Bond movies?
Yeah.
So my father was a butler for his family going back centuries. Because his employer was weakened after World War I, he didn't have a widespread network of spies or intelligence agents working for them anymore. He couldn't afford it. So my father was brought into the level of being helping his employer on secret stuff that he, as a butler, was not aware of before World War I.
Got it.
Okay, so they carried on sitting on the sidelines because they refused to lend money. They only invested. They never lent money.
They invested. And when you say they, you're speaking of Secret Council 10?
Yeah.
Got it.
And so they continued investing here and there, but they were swamped by the fact that money had become public property. Now think of that. Money became public property. It wasn't privately owned. You know, gold, credit, and cash was privately owned before World War I. But what happened in the 20s was the working middle classes were able to jump in through the wealth that was being created in America to have this abundance. And then it collapsed in 1929 due to the speed up of economic transactions created by the radio environment, the telephone environment, and the automobile and the airplane. There was too much business going on in the information society of Wall Street to keep things balanced. So there was a crash. After the crash in the early 30s, they solved it because a British economist named Keynes, Keynes, Mr. Keynes said, you know, I think we could go in debt. It's not a problem to be temporarily in debt because before that it was very economically Puritan. You had to stay out of debt. If you went into debt, you had a problem. But if we allow paper money to be distributed to people based on government funding or taxes, then we can create a situation where people can stay employed or stay accessing to basic supplies with some basic money, because people live more and more after World War I in cities. They didn't have the farms to go back to or to rely on like in the 19th century. So the money became public property. It was sent out through either socialist countries, communist countries, capitalist countries, and Roosevelt brought it in. It was called, for America, the New Deal. So the New Deal was people being given fake jobs like the Works Project, and they would work on maybe rebuilding the infrastructure of the United States and building dams. But people were controlled by the work opportunities. They didn't have the freedom before World War I to be an individual talent floating around offering your services to whatever company or situation required it. Millions of people couldn't function that way in the 30s, so they were given money for free, so to speak. So you call it unemployment insurance, you call it welfare. Because
so that's when, okay, wait. So 1920s and 1930s, that's when welfare and all these things were started. Is that what you're saying right now?
The old-fashioned boom of pre-World War II in Europe in the 20s, the average person got in on it. And a lot of people made a lot of money, average background, not aristocratic. And they had a great situation they called the Roaring Twenties. But the public couldn't handle the speed up. I won't go into all the details, but basically the Electric Information Society, which gives you information that you don't have to buy. With public radio, any radio, I hear a program, I take in the information. I'm not taking the information away from the guy who gave the program back in New York City on CBS or something. We share what it is. Now that's beyond object capitalism, where I have a bunch of apples and I sell them to you, or you give me some oranges in exchange. I lose my apples, right? And you gain them, but not in the world of information. So because this new economic environment of the radio as a main medium created a new kind of wealth that you didn't have to pay for, that confused the old accounting based on hardware or object wealth.
Got it.
Where you give up something to get something. You don't give up anything when you get information. So that created a sense of group feeling, a new tribalism, very tribal in Europe. You had the Nazi Party in Germany, you had the fascists in Italy, you had the fascists in Japan, you had the communists in Russia, which became the Soviet Union. The problem is that the more less industrialized you were, the less literacy you had in your population, you tended toward oral tribalness. So these countries that fell for the Nazis and the fascists in Europe were not as industrialized as Britain and France and the United States. But there's still a new fellow feeling. They called it fellow travelers in the United States. A new tribalism, a surface tribalism, not a deep-rooted tribalism, because Americans had been engaging in literacy for a couple of hundred years. So they put on a kind of group awareness and group support, and they call that the New Deal. So Roosevelt brought that in the 30s, not in the 20s. The 20s collapsed, so they had to create a new structure inside the radio effect. So that's what happened in the 30s. Money became public property. Now tell that to people. Do you know that money is public property? They don't think of it that way. They think someone out there, the banks or somebody has money, and you got to scrabble to get it. Well, that is an extra level of economic involvement. You're still guaranteed, at least in North America, a basic stipend so your family can survive. So you do get access to money at the ground, at the basic level.
So I don't want to cut you off, but I want to kind of jump into something because, like I said, we're just going on the flow. And this kind of like brings me to now, like the 1920s and 1930s in welfare, right? And when you look at the world right now, because they always say history repeats itself, you know, all you see now is everybody asking for a stimulus check. Like that's all it is. You know, so everybody's like, hey, when am I going to get my stimulus check? So it's almost like individuals now are making the government like their God or their power. It's like, yo, where my stimulus check? Where I'm getting my shit at? So now it's like people can't get into their position of having some type of feeling of power or something because they're depending on the government to give them this check. So what happens if the government doesn't give you this check and everybody's on this frequency of, I'm about to get some, shout out Jay Flair. Jay Flair, hoodie's going out next week. Amazing picture. So what can you talk about the world now in this position of like everybody's like waiting on this stimulus check? I've never seen that in my life. I mean, everybody, let me say it again, everybody is waiting for a stimulus check.
Okay.
Where did that come from?
What team does your pitcher you just named play for?
He plays for the Nationals. Jay Flair, he played Nationals, right? Shit, I should know this. Hold on. I think it's the Nationals.
Okay, so he's in the major leagues.
Yeah, he's big dog. Let me see.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Let me see. I mean, Cardinals. Sorry, Cardinals. Fuck, my bad, Jay Flair. Cardinals.
Okay.
Cardinals.
All right,
team.
So I'm going to continue to answer your question.
I'm on this wine. My mind ain't right. But yeah, he's on the Nationals.
Okay, so here's what
he's
happened.
Cardinals.
After the 30s. Okay, you then had a World War II. And after World War II, America came out even stronger than they had after World War I. Okay, so America ruled the roost because they had the atomic bomb. Now they had to worry about Russia, Soviet Union getting the bomb, and that was a battle in the late 40s. But overall, the welfare society in the United States was able to take off, and a lot of people made a lot of money because they had the GI Bill, where a lot of returning veterans were allowed to go to university, and it
What's
was
the
paid
GI
for.
Bill? What is that?
I forget what GI means, but it was money given to returning veterans from World War II.
Got it.
Guaranteed income, GI.
Oh, that's probably it. Guaranteed income, probably. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Continue.
so yeah, so many not that educated Americans who had fought in World War II, now as the society was becoming more information based. Now remember, war is a speeding up of technological development.
War is a speeding up of technological development. So can you break down what you mean by technological development? So basically, if someone creates the atomic bomb, and now it's war because they have a one-up on something else. Break down what you mean by that.
Well, in the 30s, they were making more and more discoveries in electronics and the beginning of digital technology, and computers came in with the company IBM, and IBM was being implemented, its products, its machines around the world, even in the enemy country, Germany, because the capitalists of each country had to keep up with the technologies to enhance their business capacities. Now you have to realize during World War II, there's still business going on, even though a large part of the societies are in the military, but there's still actions, at least on the big international corporate level, going on. So they're making new technologies, they're competing. And the main competition in World War II was who's going to get some major bomb. They just knew that they could make a huge bomb. So Germany and America and Britain were fighting over who would get it. And so America got the bomb first. So they won the war. But you see, if there had not been a war, 5-year war, there wouldn't have been the pressure to make a big bomb. And all the technologies that go towards making the big bomb on the way to making the big bomb are like radar. They would not have been developed as fast if there wasn't the pressure of war competition. All right, that's a serious situation for nations. And so America won that. And then they were able to take the principle that money was public property and spread it around. They spread it to Germany. They helped Germany get rebuilt and all over the world. Now they were lending money, and on paper, they were creating a debt-based society around the world in what McClinton called the global village. And so the oligarchy—
When you say they, you're talking about America.
McClinton called the term, he invented the term global village based on some writing by Wyndham Lewis in a 1948 book called America and Cosmic Man. It's an interesting book because the Europeans always thought they were superior to Americans in education, sophistication, and in history. America was just a new country. But Wyndham Lewis spent the war in North America, and he met Marshall McLuhan, had a big influence on Marshall McLuhan and Harold Innis. These are important thinkers in the 60s later. But Lewis he went back to Europe, and he said, something's growing in America that Europeans aren't able to do. Sort of like the melting pot idea. All these races and cultures coming together in America and free to achieve whatever they can, a lot more than in Europe, and also newer technologies. So Wyndham Lewis described this to his buddies in Europe, and he said, America and Cosmic Man. He said, a new kind of human, a new kind of civilization is coming out of America. So he used the phrase global village. So McLuhan took that phrase and popularized it in the 50s. He then changed it to theater, global theater, once the satellites, the Russian, Soviet satellites, and American satellites went around the planet. That created a proscenium arch, or a structure like in a theater around the globe. So global village became global theater. Now in the global theater, you're moving more and more into a computerized economy and what's called virtual money. Information becomes the basis of the economy, not necessarily cash. But still, the American people were put on a credit card. So starting in the 70s, the credit card economy took over. So all this acceleration was going on, and my employers, in Paris, they sat on the sidelines monitoring this, still looking for an opening. So what happened is the computerized, speeded up situation in the late 70s caused the Rockefellers and the Morgans and Wall Street to get into a bind where the countries out there in the third world, it was called the third world, couldn't pay back their debts on an annual basis, a program routine of debt payment. And so the Rockefeller Empire collapsed. And that led to a really bad situation in Wall Street where they had 20% interest rates, gold went way up. And your parents might remember the period from 1979 to 1982, a 3-year period where America was in a depression or a great recession, and that's when President Reagan came in. And he didn't get the economy going till 1983. And what caused that economy to get going? My employer and the Secret Council 10, which I was quite high up in by this time, we had a lot of money. We didn't get suckered by the debt problem.
Because you guys were just watching. You guys never engaged. You were just always on the sideline watching what was happening. Got it. So when it collapsed.
And keeping our investments going, investing in this and that. A lot of us invest in chemical industries, but not lending money to anybody. So Rockefeller built the American empire by lending, Wall Street lent money all over the world. If you want to look it up, it's AID. A.I.D. That's the government mechanism for distributing Wall Street money around the world. AID. So in '83, Rockefellers were out of it, lost. A lot of them. There were 5 brothers. Nelson had died in 1979. His brother John had died 6 months earlier in July 1978. David, the younger brother who ran Chase Manhattan Bank, he had to give it up and turn it over to some strangers. So the Rockefellers became very weakened. And,
so basically, Bob, okay, let me just go back to what we were just talking about. The Rockefellers gained their authority, not the power. They didn't know about power, by loaning people money, because if you loan someone money, they are always indebted to do something for you. But they loaned the money, and the people that they loaned the money to couldn't pay the money back. So that almost it bit them in the ass. So they lost their authority / power. And you, the Secret Council of 10, your family, been investing money, getting return on your money. So that allows you to kind of slide in while everybody was falling. Is that where we are right now? Got it.
Right. So the digital computerization of the world in the 60s and 70s had unforeseen effects, which people like Marshall McLuhan were warning the world about. He said that the computer would be the LSD of the business world. He said that in the mid 60s. In other words, it would be such a speed up of pattern recognition and people needing to be informed on what's happening in so many different companies, wealth expanding and interacting, that you had to put a lot of focus on advisors and think tanks to keep track of the patterns of information society. So it was kind of a war in peace, a competitive technological war. And it got out of hand by the late 70s. So the former Wall Street cabal couldn't keep up with what's happening. So the agreement that this wasn't working leads to the idea we got to have a crash. So there was a crash in 79. And it took 3 years to get out of it. And it was very bad for a lot of Americans, especially people in traditional jobs like agriculture. A lot of farmers went in debt, committed suicide, and a lot of unfair recriminations and authority attempts by the Reagan administration. They broke up the unions after the air traffic controller strike in 1981. So America changed the way the middle class and working class understood it. The great abundance of 1950 to 1975 started to erode, and it caused a big problem. And university kids were that syndrome of graduating with a PhD and end up being a cab driver started in that period.
Well,
New York City.
Would you say that's how it is now? We're
getting to that. No,
all right, go
it's
ahead.
different now. But in 1975, New York City went bankrupt. New York City was the capital of the world empire, and they went bankrupt. So, and then, it became really filthy living in New York City. Junkies and drug dealers and crackheads. Crack was later in the 80s, but just the services of keeping the city relatively clean and efficient were falling apart. And basically, New York never recovered till 1992 when Giuliani came in. But there were reasons for that too. But back to 1983, when my colleagues and I were invited in to prop up the economy, we had to make a figurehead who represented us, and that was Prince Charles. So Prince Charles became a roving ambassador representing the City of London, and the City of London represented all this European oligarchy that was part of the Secret Council of 10. And he had to marry a trophy wife for the social gathering to be able to schmooze with all kinds of people. So he married Lady Diana, what became Lady Diana. And so that was an arranged marriage, which fell apart 10 years later because I guess the lack of real genuine friendship and love was not there. But there were other problems. As the Secret Council 10.
Hold on, why does Dickie Dobbs say Waldorf Astoria? What does that have to do with your story right now? Why does your brother say that right now?
Well, he's telling me he knows some secret aspects of what I'm talking about, and I'm not going into that.
Okay, don't go into it. You don't have to.
He's just signaling. Now, he could be signaling to Secret Council 10 people who are listening that Bob's not a liar, and his buddy, Dickie Dobbs, is sending out code word to these people that Bob knows what he's talking about, or at least his colleagues do.
Was Princess Diana assassinated?
There's lots of evidence that she was, but I don't have the final proof. There's a good case to be made that she was, but I'll leave that to other people to get bogged down in arguing. But here's the interesting thing is the chemical body, which I'm talking about, humans as physical objects.
Bob, you have to explain what the chemical body is.
No, I'm just going to say your physical body. As it started to be superseded by electronic apparatus, electronic media, the chip body, I call it. They can go back to previous shows where I explained this. Anyways, so the chemical body was a victim. And the archetype of that on the male side was President Kennedy. So Kennedy was done away with right in front of everybody, showing that there was a new kind of power. We call it Big Brother, but Big Brother was no longer going to be secret. It was going to go public and control the information society. So they set up the National Security Act in 1947, which allowed anybody who was in the CIA or any other American intelligence agency to lie to the people. You were allowed.
Wait. So you say they created the National Security Act just for people to lie to people, just for
employees. Okay. Employees in the intelligence agencies were allowed to lie to citizens, American citizens. So there was a new class.
Why would they want to be lying to the citizens to keep control? Like, why are they lying?
Because they were doing all kinds of secret operations and assassinations and using mafia drug money to keep the virtual economy going. It was very dicey in the 80s how to look like previous industrial setups, because it was getting more and more electrified and dispersed. So the way the government had to, this is what we now call the deep state. The deep state had to do what were illegal things to keep the economy going, but they weren't going to tell the people what they're doing. That would just confuse people.
What is the deep state? Explain what the deep state is.
That's Big Brother, which in the 30s, tromped around in the streets like the Nazis and the communists and the fascists, just putting people in concentration camps. They just exerted authority very crudely and roughly. Well, after World War II, they didn't do that. They didn't march around New York City or Cleveland, Ohio, like the 30s. They retreated into secret institutions like the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, there's a whole bunch of them. And they ran the information society that determined what the news said was happening. So there was control of the mind after World War II, where it was control of the body in the 30s. Okay, so moving on.
Okay, the 30s was controlled by the body. Now it's controlled by the mind. That's kind of fast forward to where we are now. I'm sure tons of humans are being controlled by the mind, don't know what to think, don't know what you see, you don't know if it's true or false. And like we live in this world where it's like
I'm going to explain how we got there, because it wasn't that way in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It was a slower society. You had a newsman, Walter Cronkite, that all of America trusted. He was the uncle of everybody. And when you start getting into computerized internets and then social media, 2005, the decentralization of what information people can consume makes it harder for Big Brother to control it. All right? They could control it when there was only 3 networks in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Cable TV was the beginning of loosening that, say by 1980. CNN came in and they broadcast to the whole world, and they were 24/7. Whereas CBS, they'd only have a news show at 6:30 in the evening for half an hour. So the information society, with new digital technologies, new inventions, accelerated beyond human control, beyond physical body management, beyond people's management. And they now today teach in college that we're in a post-human era, a post-chemical body, physical body era. We're living in the chip body, which we all know as everybody looking at their Black Mirror and texting on their smartphones day in and day out. Ridiculously, not just their minds controlled, their bodies are paralyzed or not engaging other environments. They're just engaging the little Black Mirror, which for a lot of people, they're just sitting.
Yeah.
Or they. So Dick Dobbs is subbing in with other words. Those words he's putting in there are superstitions. These are figures. These words are figures, words that people can grasp for the ground of a very complex process that's being developed technologically that I'm explaining. Okay, so let's see. 1983. If you look at Prince Charles' life, he'd just been a guy doing organic gardening in the 70s. He was on the sidelines, like the Secret Council 10. He's part of the Secret Council 10. But then all of a sudden, he's walking around running social evenings in New York City and Paris and all over the world, because he was going around making secret deals of our money helping to prop up the economy. Now, that helped for about 10 years, 91, less than 10 years. Because meanwhile, the virtualization of the economy led to something called derivatives. And now people were engaging in making wealth that nobody could keep up with or even explain. So every couple of years, they had to bring some professor in, give him a Nobel Prize, and he made up some crazy theory, very high technical talk that nobody can understand, that the politicians could use in government committees to say, well, this guy knows what's going on, and we're not sure what he means, but we have somebody who knows. So this is a very fragile situation. So in a way, the world didn't recover economically in the Reagan era. They did a little bit, but there was so much chaos going on. More and more people were getting into crack. Like today, they're into heroin and fentanyl and all this stuff. The population was gradually getting ragged as their physical body couldn't keep up with the demands on their mind through a technology called computers, which we reduced to a new body being added to your chemical body called the chip body. And that is not so like your physical body. You can't imagine, you can't visualize this apparatus that is right now we're part of, we're being disseminated, and many millions of other shows are being disseminated. Who's keeping track of it all? You can't even visualize it. So you have a society falling apart through the early 90s and up to today. Now, what happened in 1989? The Soviet Union, a huge empire over half the world, collapsed because it was a physical chemical body empire that couldn't handle the chip body environment that went through the wall, collapsed the wall, and allowed Germany to be reunited, which no one ever thought in the 70s, 80s would ever happen. Germany, being a Nazi country, had to be punished and never allowed to be brought together. But a lot of these truths of history from 1945 to 1980 were collapsing under the impact of the chip body. Okay? So the chip body becomes the people's new experience known as the internet or the web.
Everybody, let me just say something. The chip body, just a quick definition of the chip body is basically what you guys are looking at right now. Right. You guys are looking at my chip body right now through this cellular device. This is my chip body. When I'm in my home, that's my chemical body, my physical body.
No, not what we see.
No, I'm saying, like, if I'm in my house, that's my chemical, that's my physical body. Like, nobody sees that. I mean, I see that. I mean, I'm looking in the mirror. But now people that if you're wondering what he's saying when he says chip body, my chip body is what you see on your cellular device.
No, it's not what you see. We're seeing an image of a chemical body. What they can't see is the fact that I'm in your place, you're in my place, which my physical body can't be normally unless I'm a cultist or something and can astral project. But in general,
I'm laughing at Dickie. Dickie is crazy.
Now he's referencing when I mentioned tax derivatives, that's the McClinton junk bonds he's referring to. He's detailing some of the scandals that happened in the 80s as this abundance of the Reagan era supposedly was happening. And this abundance goes from 1983 to 2008. Was that 25 years of the Reagan recovery? But it's going through all these mutations as new forms of the chip body are created. So I'm in your place, you're in mine, I'm in other people's places, those people are in this place. What is this little node that we're all experiencing? You can't visualize it. That's the chip body. So we're seeing, we're not seeing the chip body. We're seeing an image of the past, the chemical body, when they can see us. But our communication is going beyond what our physical bodies can do naturally. Okay, got it. So the first phase of the chip body was the internet. Oh, note this. The Secret Council of 10, Prince Charles collapses in the early 90s. He divorces Lady Di, and people aren't sure what kind of world we're in. And this is where the later repair of the McClinton junk bonds called tax derivatives took over in the 90s. So people were experiencing, New York City under Giuliani experienced a bit of a renaissance and a revival. And nobody could explain where the money was coming from because it wasn't physical money. It was this weird interchange of everybody typing. And if you keep typing, then it looks like the economy is going. Now, for the more literate among our audience, people can look up a writer named Baudrillard, Baudrillard. His first name is Jean, Frenchman. He wrote very well on this virtual, weird, strange reality where the simulation was more real than reality. He used that word simulation in the beginning.
Simulation was more real than reality. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess a pop culture version of that is Milli Vanilli. Did you ever hear of them?
Of course.
Yeah. So they
were lip singing everything. They weren't even singing. They were lip singing. That's what they got caught doing. They
were real, but they themselves couldn't do what was associated with
what
them.
They saw. Yeah. Oh my God. That is crazy. They were real, but the shit you saw, they couldn't do it in their fucking chemical body. Wow, that's fucking crazy. But that's what's happening today, actually.
Yes, more and more. Now,
more.
The internet, okay, a paranoia surfaced at the end of the 90s about where was this internet leading us, and everybody thought that the computers would crash because of one little digit that someone forgot to put in the code, and when it turned over in the first day of 2000, January 1st, 2000, they thought the computers wouldn't be able to compute it, and it all crashed. And this thing was called Y2K. So a lot of the computers.
Oh, let's talk about that. No, before you get into that, let me rewind because I didn't even know you were going to bring this up. Okay. I remember when Y2K started, right? When people were like, Y2K, the fucking world is going to end, stack up on waters, do all these things. Who was the authority behind Y2K? Was it the government knowing that nothing was going to happen, but they needed to do something to control the people and put them on the same page? Like, where did this because I remember Y2K. I was in this same house I'm in right now. I was like, holy shit. At 12 o'clock on Y2K, my lights are going to turn out and I'm not going to know what's going to happen. Like, who controlled that and why did they do that?
Well, how old were you then?
2000, I was born in 85, 95. I was 15 years old.
So you're in high school. You weren't
I was in high
college
school.
yet.
Yeah.
But you were doing basketball.
Yeah, I was playing basketball since I was 5. Yep, I was doing it.
5 years old.
I was fucking doing it.
Childhood. You had a programmed childhood.
I was super programmed. That bouncing ball. But look, I mean, shit, that got me to where I'm at right now. You see these awards behind me.
Well, where are you?
And that's why I found you.
There, and that nobody believes. Where are you really? You're nowhere.
You don't know. You don't know where. I could be in fucking Dubai right now. Who knows?
Yep,
Fuck. But okay. Tell me about Y2K a little bit though, because this is a good topic.
Right.
I do want to hear a story about this.
As the computers are developing at Microsoft and Apple and Oracle and all the Silicon Valley companies, for some reason, and I don't know if it was genuine or not, they actually could see that the technology and the data organization had a glitch in it at the day you switched to 2000. The whole numbering system had not anticipated this. Now, that was the story. I don't know if it was true or not. But that caused a big panic. It just started from that. But then there's all these different scenarios people would make up, like, well, okay, if that's going to collapse, I'm not going to get my food, so I have to get some beans and bullets and stock up. So there's different levels of paranoia and hysteria responding. A lot of people didn't even pay attention. But what did happen for a lot of people is they made a lot of money because the computers were sold, updated computers or computers that would handle this situation. More and more people bought computers, say from 96 to 99, than otherwise would have happened. Hard to tell what is motivating, but it's a new technology. Everybody wants to jump on board. So everybody loved developing their chip body. Meanwhile, panic was happening in the chemical body world of traditional economics and computer dynamics. Okay, so I on record said nothing's going to happen. So I'm one of the few people that predicted. I'd also predicted, based on what I knew in 1988, that the Berlin Wall would go down and Germany be reunited. So on the radio, I was doing pretty good on situations that surprised people and surprised intelligence agencies. So that was the advantage I had in the Secret Council of 10. So nothing happened, but people were in shock. And so there was a crash anyways, economically on Wall Street in 2000. It was called the .com, became .bomb.
The .bomb. That's what your brother just said. Dickie Dobbs said the .bomb.
There he is.
Oh, you didn't see that? Yeah, he wrote that. No. He wrote that about 3 minutes ago.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
.com to .bomb. Matter of fact, I was thinking, is that the phrase? I haven't used it in a long time. I think it's .bomb, so I said it. But I couldn't look here, and Dickie was helping me. He knew what I was not.
Your brother's always on top. Your brother's that boy Dickie Dobbs, a different boy. But keep going. Go ahead.
He's tricky, but
tricky Dickie.
So an interesting point in my own life was I'd been living in Manhattan from 93 to 2000, and I had a radio show in Toronto, but I didn't have a radio show in New York. I didn't have access to media in New York City, and I didn't want to. I was doing a lot of studying as part of the Secret Council 10 and after, because I disbanded the Secret Council 10 in 1990. I knew the human body could not, even the elite, the Illuminati, could not keep up with the way technology was unfolding.
Oh, 1 second. I know the people that's here want to hear. When you say certain terms, I'm going to need you to break it down. What exactly is the Illuminati? Well, is it a real thing? Is it a facade? What the fuck is the Illuminati?
It was real. The Secret Council 10 was, for all intents and purposes in Europe, the Illuminati. Ancient wealth, ancient credit, ancient gold, ancient everything. And so they could control the central banks of different nations. Now that started to collapse in the after World War I. Now Hitler, he got into power largely because he claimed there still was an Illuminati, and he said they were Jewish bankers, and he was wrong, but he used the meme of some secret control that was undermining Germany and all the other countries that didn't seem to be doing as well as the United States. So some people thought it became the Rockefellers, replaced the European oligarchy or Illuminati. Now, the Illuminati theme was popularized in the late 50s in the United States under a society called the John Bircher Society. And if you actually look at Adam Curtis's new documentary series called Can't Get You Out of My Head, he's someone a lot of people know, and they like watching his new documentaries because he finds all kinds of footage. He has some rare footage of a John Bircher meeting in someone's house and how they were all worried about the Rockefellers as Americans and thought that the Rockefellers were undermining the traditional American way of life, the Rockefellers being part of an international elite. So they would sometimes use the term Illuminati. And it had an actual historical reference point. Some books were written in 1776, coming out of Bavaria, describing...
That's around the time the printing press came out, right? 1776? Is it around that time?
No, 1500. 250 years before is the printing press.
Oh,
what's happening in 1776 is the newspaper is starting to happen. And that created republicanism or nations. So America became the first nation built on the printing press through Ben Franklin's newsletter or newspaper. See, so anyways, the Illuminati as an idea were popularized in this one or two books in 1776 up to 1800. That's where the word became known, you know, over 200
Oh, because
years.
of the book. The word became known because it was in the book Illuminati, and now people are like, oh, the Illuminati is this big group. Okay, got it.
And they were actually talking about the people my grandparents worked for. You know, we've been butlers since the 1700s in France. So the term Illuminati got repopularized by Alex Jones. You ever heard of Alex Jones?
Nope.
He's a very popular independent broadcaster who got quite millions of followers, and he led the investigation of 911. They were called 911 truthers, truth movement. They didn't believe in the standard story of what happened.
What do you think happened? Since we're flowing right now, what do you think happened at 911? What is if you had 10 seconds to say what 911 is, what is it? 10 seconds starts now.
There was a huge international debt in 1999 and 2000. Going into 2001, it had to be corrected. So they blew up Morgan Stanley and like floor 97 of the World Trade Center. So all the documents of the international records of who owed who money fell to the street.
Oh my God. That's wow. Wow. I know I gave you 10 seconds. So basically what you said, 911 is because a lot of debt owed. So they hit a certain floor where all the documents were who owed who. They knocked that shit out so nobody could find it.
Right. And
holy shit.
And a subplot was, now here's the other part. A subplot was something called NESARA, N-E-S-A-R-A, which went back 100 more years, some kind of deal that was made by Washington and American farmers that the farmers do make us some sacrifices. They'll get repaid later. And it's probably a little more complicated than that, but basically there was this thing. So the farmers are waiting to be repaid. Bill Clinton was supposed to repay the farmers in 99, 2000, and he refused to do it. He himself refused to do it.
Did he have the money to do it though?
Yeah. Yeah, because the abundance from 93 to 99 caused by the internet and the new technology of the 90s that Giuliani led in New York City was spreading wealth all over the place. Late 90s was a good time for Americans in normal consuming levels.
Yeah.
So because Clinton botched the fair deal that history said should happen, there was a panic, and it led to 911.
And it's funny because when it's a panic, you call 911.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, here's an interesting point. The Taliban, okay, take that word.
Yeah.
In the 90s in Afghanistan and wherever they were, this terrorist group that took over some, Asian governments, they would ban television. So when I heard of that in the mid-90s, they're the Taliban, T-A-L-I-B-A-N.
So it's banned television, basically.
The British used to always call the television, at least I knew it in the 50s, 60s, as the telly. So the Taliban were banning the telly, okay? So
Wow,
they decided to
mind-blowing.
ban the Central Broadcasting World at the World Trade Center to ban its TV. So the building, which had the TV tower that broadcast stuff over the 5 boroughs in that area, maybe in New Jersey and Connecticut, widespread stuff. That was the first building that the Taliban bombed, if you accept the story the Taliban were in on it and organized it. There's lots of evidence it wasn't them. But anyways, they went after, literally, they blew up the tower because they're called ban TV, ban the tally, so they knocked out the tally tower in the World Trade Center. That's a sort of a folk culture way to look at the pun in language. The Taliban knocked out the television of New York City.
Wow.
So that's a side thing that I invented. Crazy. That was my own poem, okay? Punning on the Taliban.
That was good. Good one.
So there was this chaos when that happened. And the economy didn't really recover.
Don Ford, what up, boy? Say what's up to my boy Don Ford.
Need that jersey. You want your jersey.
Yeah. He wants the
Jack's
McClinton
a legend
jersey, Bob.
in his own body. You're a legend, not in your mind, in your own body and what you covered up.
Hey,
with.
Bob, I'm learning from you to get out my mind so we can get to these trillions like you.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later because I need $1 million donation from you, but we'll keep it going. And Dickie, since you're in control now, I mean, what's $1 million to a trillionaire? Whatever.
Okay.
Continue though. Okay. All is recorded. Dickie, you're on here and Bob was on here. Let's keep the conversation going. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so there was a tough recovery after 2001, but there was this idea that, okay, the internet exploring, basically there was an anti-technology mood from 2000 to 2005. And it was symbolized by the Bush administration refusing to do stem cell research. They weren't interested in science. And George Bush himself, his image was he didn't care about the information society.
I got to take a piss, Bob. I got to take a pee.
Okay.
Answer the questions. And, hey, look, we're going to take this time right now. Ask the smartest man, the richest man in the world, and his brother, Dickie Dobbs, in the chat. Any question you want, I'll be back in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Make sure you guys count it down.
Count it down. Okay, questions. Looking, I see Dick Dobbs says take it off. Anybody got anything after that? Just hearts coming up. People celebrating the emotions, the emotion of multitude. Nobody's typing. How are they hanging, Bob? I haven't started hanging people yet. I've just got into power today. So they ain't hanging yet, Dickie. They could be. They keep asking me for money. Jack might be subject to a hanging if he keeps up on this neediness. Don't be needy, people. Need. Spell need, K-N-E-A-D. And that means you're kneading dough. When you make bread, you knead dough. So develop your...
We kneading dough, baby. We kneading... Hey, I got a line in my rap song about kneading dough. But anyway, continue. I'm back, guys. Shout out my nigga Dickie.
Listen, very controversial. I want to see what Jermaine said. Are you guys going to talk about emotions? Oh, maybe. Furry lint, that's important. Sally, she loves this. Keep rocking it. Snow, what happened March 4th? Well, that's what we're leading to.
March 4th, let's get to it.
Oh, there's Dimitri. This is Demetrius.
Which one's Dimitri?
Now, Demetrius is someone else.
Oh, what's up, 4-7? That's Dimitri. That's from the show.
No, that's Dimitri. This is Demetrius.
Oh, that's somebody else.
And I know Demetrius here on the island of Maui, but it could be Dimitri saying his full name. So there's 2 Dimitris possible here. Anyways, we're at the point in 2003 where the second wave of the internet started to be developed. It was first MySpace. And then there was Facebook, and then there was YouTube. And what this allowed people to do was to individually broadcast. So this is further decentralization, as opposed to people in Web 1.0 getting data through their dial-up phone and email. Is still slightly centralized. And regular media in the 90s, Wolf Blitzer and CNN could still seem to be engaging in some authoritative perspective. But when in 2006, 7, and 8, when YouTube and people creating their own news stations, that scrambled America. And America got scared. So most people were taking advantage of the real estate boom. So they said, you know, this real estate thing, this flipping of houses is irresponsible. We as a collective mood need to put a stop to this. So the people panicked, and they caused the mortgage crisis in 2007, 2008, which led to a crash in September 2008. Okay? So all this planning and adjusting, first by the Rockefellers in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, then the oligarchy in the 90s, and they collapsed halfway through the 90s. And then the leftover of people who wanted to rule by authority, and a lot of authorities based on fear, tried to create a global fear hologram with 911 in 2001. That worked for a while, but by 2006 and 7, Bush's operations in the Middle East started to get disillusioned with any kind of authority figures. But on top of that, the economy collapsed, which did everybody in. And so here we are 12 years, 13 years later, after the huge crash of 2008. And what's the situation? We have an economy that for the chemical body has stopped. Literally, no one ever imagined the global economy for the physical body would stop. And it started stopping in the COVID crisis. So we moved into an unprecedented time of panic, hysteria, schizophrenia, paranoia. And there were a few people making money off this. So they were quite ecstatic. They're known as Silicon Valley. So Dickie Dobbs shows up on a new level to help me in 2009 because I have disbanded.
I'm going to know something about 2009. We talk about time and timing. In 2009 was the year that I got drafted by the NBA. That's just a little side note. Nobody in my life ever would have thought I would be drafted to the NBA. Same year that Dickie Dobbs helped you out was the same year that I got drafted. It sounds weird now that I say it. It sounds weird that I got, huh?
You got drafted physically. I got drafted spiritually.
Yeah. And it sounds funny when you say drafted. It's like you get drafted, now you're working for someone else. Like I'm not my own individual power. I was drafted by a bigger organization, and now I work for this organization. I'm a part of this organization. But since I've met you, I've been able to disable myself from that draft mindset into like this power mindset of controlling my own destiny. But sorry, continue to
look at that word draft. That's a military term in America. When people have to go to war, like World War II, they were drafted.
We're drafted.
So
yep.
it's a giving up of your individual constitutional rights on behalf of the collective, the nation, to protect it. So you willingly sacrifice your autonomy to join this collective operation. You all wear the same uniform. And then you go to war against the other guys with the same uniform. Okay, so drafted. Now, information and entertainment merged in the 60s and 70s. Sports became a big business because it was part of government. Sport and entertainment is part of government.
What do you mean that sports was a big part of government? Explain. You got to break that down. I don't know what the freak that means. What do you mean sports became a...
Government's supposed to give you security and protect you. Now, governments mutated in the 20th century into fearful, mean institutions all over the world. And then the information society took over. And what was the term I'm explaining? I forget.
Drafted?
No. You said, I'm explaining something. I can't remember what you said. Do you remember what your question was? And
I don't remember.
explain. Okay, so I'll just shift into draft. Okay, so there was a merger of entertainment and sports became a kind of government. That's what
Oh
I
yeah, yeah,
said.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So what that meant is because government was obsolete as a literate industrial institution by the new software world we were in, information society, then the content of the information society became what distracted people from maybe being a little more responsible if they understood what was going on. So it was a lazy man's way of being government was to constantly watch sports and entertainment and
Mm,
movies. And that was a major stimulus to the economy in 2003 and on, as the big internet companies moved into and made the internet a corporate entertainment distraction industry, and which we now have the absurd level where people are stuck to their screens 24/7. Okay, that's government. That's controlling people. That's distracting people. That's getting people thinking something out there is going to protect them. Okay. Meanwhile, in 2009, Dick Dobbs gets mutated and he starts talking to me in a different way, and way different from the way Dickie Dobbs was before. He drafts me for a new level of knowledge. And so that helped me become a trillionaire, helped me do other things like my bride of 53 years. You have her on every other week, and her products are incredible in what they do. So in 2009, for the next 11 years, we were the new government on a very deep level, and we've influenced everything. And it got to the point where today, on March 4th, or yesterday, the completion of this takeover by us, me and Dickie and Carolyn, from 2009 to now, got climax completed earlier today at midnight. And so that's where we are today. And it's a whole new situation where people are in a global concentration camp and they're dying all over the place. And it's very biblical. And the term in the Bible is called the tribulations. We're in a period much like the tribulations as prophesied in the Bible, in the book of Revelation. And that's the seriousness of our situation that have led people to 10, 15 years ago, so much information, people use the word whatever. Okay, you talk to somebody, what's up? Whatever.
Your brother said nutted, in other words. Basically busted a nut.
In
Now,
other words.
yeah, okay. I get that.
And so people, it's interesting in hip hop, the phrase, what's up? The interrogative, the questioning of reality, and everybody becomes your consultant. So in the hip hop culture, everybody's checking out everybody else. What's up? You know what's going on? Have you figured out how to say? But increasingly from the 90s on, nobody knew how to wrap it up and put it in a big frame. It was too big. It was too post-chemical body, too post-human. And then what's up became whatever. You didn't bother asking what's up, just whatever.
So, okay,
so
let me say something.
Dead. Get this. But the body is killed with COVID. The body is made paralysis. You can't even walk around. Now, under my influence over the last year, March, last year was when the lockdown pretty well started picking up speed. And now here a year later.
Let me note that. Let me note on that real fast. Let me note before you continue the story. I remember last year, me and my beautiful lady, Jermaine, were living in Los Angeles. I think it was February. And you said, Jack, you guys should get out of LA. It's going to get bad. Things are not going to be good. There's going to be a huge devastation to plenty of people. And we moved up out of there. And we had no clue what the fuck you were talking about. 1 month later, this COVID thing comes. And, you know, it has been this huge world phenomenon that we're still dealing with a year later. We're at the next March. And not only are we on the COVID, there's still more strands coming. And now they're shooting shit in people to say this can protect you from this thing. But continue your story. I just wanted to say that I remember we moved from where we were because of the information that you gave us in February before this all these shenanigans started. But sorry to cut you off. I had to say that.
Right. Now that I'm in charge, what are you seeing? What is it? Governor DeSantis of Florida and Texas saying that screw you, Fauci, off with our masks, full business is opening. We're not going along with this bullshit about some pandemic. And if it's happening, so what? We want to live. So I see that as a nice outbreak this week, responding to me coming in.
Well, even All-Star Weekend is this weekend. There's tons of NBA All-Star Weekend is in Atlanta this weekend. NBA All-Star Weekend.
Well,
there's parties all over the place right now.
Right. But a year ago, you had it in Chicago, and Carolyn, my bride, was there.
Yeah,
right?
We were there a year ago. Yes. We're all there hanging out.
How are they doing it with no masks, or is it very controlled?
I mean, you got to think, Bob. You know, one thing I'll say about the NBA is an amazing organization. They've done a great job of providing opportunities. This All-Star Weekend has been dedicated to historically Black colleges and, you know, people of the less fortunate, I would say. You know, this is the first time ever at the NBA All-Star Game they have all 3 Black referees, right? And it's funny when you look at it from a higher perspective, like, okay, all of a sudden now you decide to make these things a priority, right? You know, you have all 3 Black African-American referees this year. You have, you know, the court is designed by historically Black colleges, universities. Like, you know, things have shifted in a way that it's like, why now? But it makes sense as we're talking to why it's now, because it's almost like people don't know what's going on. We have no clue what the fuck is really happening in our world.
Okay, so now we come up to the stimulus check, which is obviously an updating of welfare, but it's welfare, which came in with 30s, where everybody's guaranteed some basic money to survive and keep feeding their family, even though it was tough and didn't have much money. Okay, so we went through the changes of money to the credit card in the 50s and 60s, and then to this virtual economy where everything was run on debt and nobody cared, into the 80s and 90s. But then the computerized environment crashed it in 2000, well, Y2K, and then 2001. And then we've limped along, and then it all fell apart in 2008. And then there's been nothing since 2008. Nobody can explain why the economy is still happening. And when Trump came in, he accelerated it with his own particular genius of allowing what's called M2, not the M1 economy, but the M2 is all the unregistered wealth that's out there.
I got a question. Are you saying that M2, and it's something funny that just happened, El Chapo's wife got locked up. At one time, I remember you used to say stuff that the government was allowing drug money to come in to help fund the society. Was that a thing that was true? Like they were allowing Mexican cartels and money to come in because it was funding the economy.
That was the secret stuff in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But when the
50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was a secret that the cartels and all these people that have these drugs were coming in and they weren't doing anything about it because it was funding the economy. That was secret. But when the computer technology came in, those things were no longer a secret. So everything was known. Is that what you're saying right now?
There were so many different opinions being expressed on the internet and YouTube. Nobody knew what was the real opinion, the real truth. So the ongoing scandal of banks taking illegal black market money and having it as part of the economy, they could keep going right in front of everybody because nobody knew what was in the whatever world we were in. See, the disservice of the internet is there's too much information, okay?
Yeah.
So it becomes not human on the level of mental computing or pattern recognition that you have to do, okay? So most people zone out. And then they got even more confused, started taking fentanyl and all these drugs. It's amazing, the spread of heroin in the small towns.
Yeah, I just saw a professor at the University of, I don't know, people help me out that's watching. It was either Columbia or one of these big prestigious colleges that said he takes heroin. And that was like the craziest shit. I'm like, what? A professor at one of the top prestigious colleges is promoting heroin. And it's in the news. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
That's because,
it's crazy.
No, what's going on is that people can't control what's going on.
100%.
They can't control it in the old way of government Big Brother saying, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. Just say no. Big Brother is so weak That's why Trump was able to win in 2016. He represented a non-government figure. Now, what he did with the M2, he allowed all the drug cartels, who were secretly going through the banks anyways and keeping the economy propped up. He said, no, we're not hiding you. You can come in, bring your money in, the hidden money, and circulate it, and we won't tax you. That was the deal. And so all this money flooded in, and the regular economists didn't really understand that. I don't know how secret it was that Trump did this at the time, but I don't remember it being talked about much. So anyways, this flooding of new wealth kept Trump's economy going for 3 or 4 years till COVID, and new wealth and more people employed. It was because they gave up on rules about what's good money and what's bad money. Okay, and what's taxed and what isn't taxed. So it's almost like the virtual computer world, which I call the Android meme, and I've talked about it a long time. The Android meme got to a whatever state. The Android meme gave up. And so what did the key parts of the Android meme, known as Silicon Alley, Facebook, Amazon, Google, and whatever the other guy is, YouTube, they made an economy out of taking data about you from your personal Facebook page and selling it as if something could be developed. What are you going to get about you or me or anybody else that's useful for consumer projections of the market or of Wall Street? Well, they made up this shit that, excuse the word, we're going to say it's shit. It is.
Yep.
It's viable.
Can't say that word, Bob.
No, this is shit. What I'm talking about.
Okay.
So they made up these crazy, it's called surveillance capitalism. There's a big book written on it, a Harvard prof, a female. And she's explaining how big data built and kept the economy going, but was based on information about you. Why should information about you and me and the rest of us lead to wealth? Well, it didn't. But it kept people typing. And if people look busy, then they think there's something being busy about. And so they just took raw information and made up ridiculous patterns. Oh, well, we're anticipating this, we're anticipating that. Well, none of them anticipated where we are in 2020 with COVID. They didn't see that coming.
We're in
They didn't
2021.
see how they'd all get screwed up. They still make money on it, but they are incompetent. And so when they take Zuckerberg and bring him into Congress to be interviewed by some Senate panel, the senators don't understand him, and he claims he doesn't understand it either. So can you imagine 100 years ago, people go walking around and say, oh, well, nobody knows what's going on. We can't know what's going on, but carry on anyways.
But carry on anyway. Wow.
Yeah. But that's where our minds, our physical body, chemical body minds aren't involved anymore. And that's why what is a phrase today? Now, there was whatever. In your world,
what's good?
Street,
what's good is a popular phrase. What's good? What's good? That's the phrase these days.
They're asking what is good?
Yeah, that's the phrase. What's good? Yeah, I would say that's probably the popular thing now. It's not what's up. It's what's good.
Okay, you know what that means? That means, like Trump did, he didn't care about evil, dirty, black market money. They couldn't tell what was good or bad anymore. So they let the bad money in, and it's within the nebulous category of what's good, but we don't know what's good anymore.
We don't know what's
good
anymore.
That's why they're legalizing anything anybody claims. Well, I'm a dog. I would feel like a cat, but I want to be a rattlesnake. Okay, no problem. You get your rights.
Oh, wait. So is that why they're legalizing? I've been seeing recently that they're allowing male athletes that have turned transgender to participate in female sports. So basically a man can turn a woman and participate in a women's sport and win it and kill it. Is that kind of like a example of what you're saying? That's not fair.
They don't know what, it's not fair. They don't know what's good anymore. They can't remember fair values.
They don't know what's
what
good.
Was traditionally good. The good in philosophy, they would debate the good. Well, what's the good? And they'd come up with answers. Nobody knows what's good. So that's very good. That's the latest. I don't know what's good.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. What's good? I don't know what's good. Fuck. It's not what's up no more. It's what's good. We need to change the Tuesday show to what's good. Not what's up. What's good?
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. What's good?
What's good? What's good?
All right.
Well, who knows what's good? Who the fuck knows?
We don't. We're eating food that doesn't have nutrition, yet we eat it anyways. We watch junk junk media, junk presidents. Look at Obama. He can't even finish. I mean, Biden. He can't even finish a sentence. He can't even complete his syllables. He doesn't know what's good. He doesn't even want to show up for work. He doesn't know if it's good to be president.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for you, Bob. You know, I know we had a private.
They have no Back to the Future. Who was Back to the Future? Is that Kenley?
Nah, I don't know who this. I remember he was on here one time before, but I don't want to. I want to ask you a question really fast because this is a sidebar that you and I had personally the other day on your private, on after hours, and we were talking about the vaccine, and we were talking about how if people got the vaccine now, when the new COVID comes and you catch the new COVID and you have the antibodies of the vaccine, it's going to kill you instantly. So tell me about that and how the fuck do you have this knowledge in our country? Well, you're in control now, so I mean you're not the president, so I got access to basically the motherfucker to give me that info. But I remember you told me a while ago, like, don't get the vaccine, don't do these things, because even your bride, you know, because when the antibodies mix with the new strand that's coming, which makes sense because Texas is opening up, they have All-Star Weekend in Atlanta, there's no fucking, nobody's, you know, people are just acting like everything is cool. So what you're basically saying is when this what is the new virus mixed with? And Dickie Dobbs, if you're on here, could you please help us? Tell us what this new strand of COVID is mixed with. What is it mixed with?
I got the information from Dickie Dobbs.
Okay, so what did he say? What is the new?
Here's what he said.
Okay.
He says the viruses are always mutating anyways. But
they're always mutating.
When we get a vaccine, that creates as a protective measure antibodies or antigens. Those are the two words. And so you got new stuff due to the vaccine in your body. But unfortunately, the new strain that's coming, and it's very powerful, when it goes in you, you get infected, and it mixes with the antigens that the vaccination created. You die. So what we're going to see is mass death all over the place after everybody's been vaccinated. So that's
okay. Let's go back to that again. I just want to say that because, and it doesn't sound completely left field because if you think about it, right, you think about any medicine. I mean, you can think about cancer and AIDS. These things have been around for years, like decades. There's no fucking, they don't have a cure for it. But this new shit that's killing people off called COVID, all of a sudden, they have a vaccination that protects you from it. And they're promoting it at every level. Get the vaccine, protect yourself. But get the vaccine, but you still got to wear your mask. It's like, fuck, I just got the vaccine. What the fuck I got to wear the mask for? So then all of a sudden, it's like, when you say that a new strand will be coming, and of course you don't want to think a new strand is coming, but you think about states like Texas. You think about Atlanta All-Star Weekend where there's really like not a big like hard on like be protected because you wouldn't have an All-Star Weekend if it was. And then next thing you know, it's like there's a new COVID coming and it's mixing with the protection that you thought you got. You're protected of the other one, but they didn't think about that protection that you're getting mixing with something that's brand new. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, you heard it first here on the Step Back with Jack podcast. Trillionaire Bob and my brother Dickie and my nigga Dickie. We on here, and like I said, you could take everything on this podcast with a grain of salt or a little bit of spice, and I call it pepper. You ain't got to listen. If you don't like it, don't watch this shit. But if you hear something that maybe makes a little bit of sense to you, because things that make sense don't really make sense anymore. And what we forget is that somebody else is making dollars. We don't know what's good no more. We don't know what's good. We thought we knew what was up. Oh, let me hear it.
Back to the Future says a lot of virologists are saying exactly what Bob's saying. Yes, it's remarkable. There are documentaries. There are people making videos all over the world saying don't take the vaccination. Not necessarily based on what I'm saying, but based on how it wasn't working and it's not working and it's hurting people already in trials. So there's already a huge panic. And I think Carolyn told me recently the teachers union, all these teachers in school
are quitting.
I think they have to get vaccinated. Maybe that's in California.
I saw that. No, I saw that. Biden made a thing that said we want all the teachers to get vaccinated right away. And remember, I told you about that on our last on the after hours. We were talking,
Right.
and how a
So
lot
what
of people were
happened,
yeah.
what I want to say about it is that the teachers all said, emailing to their friends and colleagues, well, that's it. I'm giving up teaching. I'm
I'm
quitting.
not teaching
A
anymore.
lot of people are not buying the weak government line. Very weak, because there's too much other information out there. I mean, Carolyn says the simple understanding that there's a new flu every year. If you make a vaccination for this year's flu, it ain't ready. It's not
Ready
available for next year's mutation.
Yeah, yeah.
Simple
yeah.
fact. And
That's
so,
the thing, bro. Bob, these things are simple facts, but
Yeah.
it's so crazy that as a human, we can't even take in simple facts. These are
well,
simple
look at
facts.
in the whatever world, and no mind and nobody knowing what's good, authority can't even be propaganda. People can't even make sense out of what looks like a sense, but it's really just propaganda. So propaganda has gone crazy. And so during the whole COVID thing, Fauci is fighting with Trump, is fighting with Dr. Burke, the female doctor, and they're all arguing. Nobody, that's when I heard a lot of people on the street saying, I don't know what's going on anymore. They were shocked that the authorities couldn't
Shout out
act
Paris. Paris, where
authoritatively.
you been at, Paris? You need to be on this fucking show every other Friday. Paris is a good friend of mine, huge in media, she's a powerful person. I want to shout out Paris right now. Paris Leon. Shout out Paris, Bob. She's one
But
of
look,
us.
I would
Yeah, go
say
ahead.
sheeple's a cliche. You're looking at your position as if you might know more than the people. So you're calling them sheeple. Well, what's happened is technologies that you rely on, they're the sheeple now. Technologies don't know what's going on. And then that's led to this new phenomenon called the tech body, which we haven't talked about. It's way more dangerous than the chip body. And because the tech body likes me, they put me in charge. I'm working.
The tech body likes me too, Bob. Don't put me in that. Put me in there too. The tech body fucks with me. Don't
Okay.
fucking. Okay, thank you. Okay, keep going.
Sally's like peaking. She's peaking. It's so crazy. She's feeling good. She's
The
feeling
tech body is my nigga. All right, go ahead.
So the point is, I don't think we can use the divisions between people who are informed and those uninformed. We have to realize that humans can't even begin to decide who's more informed than the other.
Good.
They can't decide what's good. And then
they can't decide what's good. We gotta turn the show to what's good. But I think we had to what's good. It's not what's up. What's good.
Yeah.
But that's crazy because what's good is now turned into a question. You know, what's good. Like this is what's good. But now what's good is actually a question. What's good?
Yeah.
Like
we don't know.
How you gonna ask me what's good? You don't know what's good anymore.
Does he like Robert Kennedy Jr.? No, I mean, he's okay within the chemical body pollution world, as an ecologist, but he's not dealing with the media ecology and our other bodies. Only I have a world monopoly on that information, and I'm struggling even to keep that because I'm up against.
We're not going to talk about that right now. We're not getting into the Kennedy shit, but yeah.
No, it's not the Kennedy assassination. This is just.
Bob, what the fuck?
What? No. Robert Kennedy, his father was assassinated, but Robert Kennedy has become a big figure in the anti-pollution world.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think he's against vaccinations too.
Okay.
He's come out against it, but he's just informed. But we got to realize that you cannot be above the sheeple. You are a sheeple to the degree you don't understand your chip body and what the tech body is doing to you. So we'll probably go into the tech body.
Let's go in. And how much? When are you going on your walk? I know it's getting to about that time. How many more minutes we got till you leave?
Go another 20 or so minutes.
All right, cool. So we got another 20 minutes. I know
exactly what happened to the Kennedys, and that's not apostrophe S. Kennedy and an S. You don't put an apostrophe S in there. See how Back to the Future misspelled Kennedys plural?
Yeah, we're not going to go into the Kennedys. We're going to go into the tech because we already know what happened to the Kennedy. We already know it. We talked about that on the last show. If you haven't heard about the Kennedy shit, go on the previous shows and find out for yourself. But what we're going to go into right now is the tech body, Bob. And the tech body.
Back to the Future, he recognizes we are all sheeple. Yes, that's where you begin. And that's why you would talk to anybody. When President Trump watched me talking to Jack, which happened October before the election, he was with some friends of mine, and they were watching us, and he looked, and after he watched me for 5 minutes, he said, geez, Bob will talk to anybody. Now that's what I'm doing.
And then what did he tell you yesterday? He said, yo, that motherfucker Jack is a boss. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, let's get back. let's get back to this tech body talk. And I think this is a conversation for the last 20 minutes that I want to make our main thing, because the tech body is the thing that's controlling everything right now. It's in complete control. Yeah, Dick Dobbs like, damn.
Even made Dick Dobbs go, damn, it's bad, is what Dick Dobbs did.
Exactly.
Dick Dobbs had to step back and put me in charge because Dick couldn't handle it.
Exactly.
He can't handle the tech body.
So getting into the tech body, and I never want, on you and I speaking, you know, we speak about the tech body is in all of us. I don't know if it's the fact that the tech body is controlling everything we see, so that's for us all in us.
Everything, you're totally possessed.
You're totally, and I get it. I mean, and I can even tell you from my own circumstance. You know, you sometimes, you know, you sit up and you're on your phone and you say, you know what, I'm gonna get on my Instagram. I'm gonna get on this for like 10 minutes. I'm gonna go to sleep. 10 minutes turns into fucking 3 hours. It doesn't even seem like it's 3 hours. You just been on this fucking cellular device looking at information at the speed of light, but you don't think about the after effect that that's really having on you if you continue to do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. It seems like it's a part of you. So I want to talk about this tech body. And Bob, can you break down where it started and where the tech body is now?
Well, on the spiritual level, the tech body started with the Ark of the Covenant the Jews had.
Explain. The Ark of the Covenant is the place where the Jews put their power in, correct? They put the power in a box.
Yeah.
And the Lizites, was it Lizite? What did they call it? Something.
The Levites.
The lizards. The Levites, they tried to get the power back, and they tried to go in Ark of the Covenant. They were shocked. As soon as they tried it, they all put their power in a box. It started with the Ark of the Covenant. So basically what you're saying now, the tech body is this cellular device, this black mirror, where each human has put all of their power. And it's not shocking you physically where you touch it and you get into it. It's almost paralyzing you, where you don't know what the fuck is really happening to you, but it feels good. It kind of puts you in a deep sleep where everything is good, but it ain't what's good.
Yeah. That's right. You wake up from it and go, what's good? Because you just
what's good?
Exactly. Okay,
so explain that.
Yeah, what's interesting, I think it's, what's that movie, The Lost Raiders of the Ark, back in the 90s?
That's Indiana Jones.
Yeah. So
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, and when they find the Ark, the Nazis try to control it, and they get eaten up by the emanations coming from the Ark.
Oh, that's what the Ark was? The Ark of the Covenant, basically? Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah.
Wow, never fucking knew that. I got to go back and watch the movie again. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. They found the Ark, and they got to it all the position of power. It ate them up. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You only hear this on the Step Back with Jack podcast and Trillionaire Bob and our brother Dickie. That's good. That's good knowledge right there, Bob. That's great. That is great.
Yeah, so here's the background. Because the Ark, Moses, they brought the bones of Joseph and a couple other things out of Egypt when Moses, freed the Jews to get out of there. And then they go and start Judea and then Israel. The box they brought their valuables with, and they wandered in the desert for 40 years. So when they got settled, they would build a temple, and the Ark would be put in the middle of the temple or just on the side in what was called the tabernacle. And it was an offering to God, their God. And they would put shewbread, very special, powerful bread, on the altar. And only the tribe, there was 12 tribes approximately, and one of the tribes was called the Levites, and they were the priests.
Wait, why could they only touch the Ark? Well, how come only the Levites could touch the Ark? Why couldn't, the brother Dickie came in. I want to keep this conversation going. We got 15, 20 minutes. How come only the Levites touch the Ark? Why couldn't anybody else couldn't have access to it?
Well, they were like the priests among the 12 tribes, so they were trained maybe in a spiritual maturity to go in and not be afraid of the Ark. If they felt nervous about it, felt vulnerable, afraid of death, and all those things that make people neurotic, they would instantly die by the ark. And so when a Levite went in, they had a rope attached to him, because when he died, the corpse would be stuck there. No one else would go in, so he had to pull the corpse out.
Back. Got it.
Yeah. So, anyways, the Ark of the Covenant the Ark was a really important phenomenon. It was the first mental fall by humans. They put their power into the Ark and didn't give it to themselves, into this box. And but at the same time, since all time and the spiritual level, all events happen in a big now, including ones that are changed and altered. So within eternity, you don't know what's going on. And technologically, we've arrived at an eternity point. And that's why everybody's going, what's good? What's up? Whatever. We actually technologically.
What's the deal? What's the deal? What's good? Whatever. Yeah, it's crazy. All the new slang for, like, in in the culture of African American community, I'm going to tell you the top 5 ways that I talk to that I communicate with my friends. It's either what's good, what's the deal, what's up, what's going on,
whatever.
or what we on, what we on. It's always what is the first word. What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, so the Dickie saying the Levites were chosen. So maybe it's like shaman cultures where they raise the kid to take on the father's spiritual talents, So it's a special training, and maybe it takes a certain kind of aura that the kid has, it gets chosen. But the point is that in the big now, where all history and all events are happening already, because in eternity means we've been here forever, and we live forever. So we have been here so long that everything got done. Okay, that's the way we live. That we suppress that awareness. So right there beside the Ark of the Covenant was the tech body sitting there waiting. So we go through 3,000 years of technology.
Well, you say the tech body was like the Council of Council of 10. They were like it was right there watching everything and not really saying shit, but it was just watching. And now, if you think about it, this is almost how you have become, as you say, you're in charge. You were sitting next to this whole shit that everybody's putting their power in, and now all of a sudden, March 4th, you claim on my show, our show, Bob says, Dickie Dobbs says no. But anyway, now you're in control.
Yes, it's not a authoritative control. It's a control of power. Nobody has the technologies I have. Nobody has the solutions that I have. All right? You can get a whiff of it by getting Carolyn's products. That'll give you the power that I quote, own.
Yeah.
But we're trying to give it away. Okay? Yeah. A lot of people don't want to know about it. So anyways, so the tech body, you go through 3,000 years of technological evolution. And then we get up to the electric age in the 20th century, which obsolesces the print age before it. Printing press was a big deal for human civilized thinking when it came in 500 years ago. The what they call the Renaissance just rose humans up in a new level of being informed and qualifications to be leaders. That was had a hidden bias that nobody understood, but the bias became available once we moved into the new electronic environment, or the Marconi galaxy, as opposed to the print-based Gutenberg galaxy. In the Marconi galaxy, a different kind of intelligence was acquired in the 20th century. And it actually was more democratic. You didn't have to be a person who could read to be intelligent in the 20th century. You just
Gutenberg galaxy.
Gutenberg galaxy. Okay, so now that evolved into the Android meme when technology took on a life of its own. And then the Android meme became a psychopath called the tech body. And the tech body, it has lots of services as disservices. It will cancel your bank account and you won't be able to find it, but it'll also bring you pizzas right away. It'll have driverless cars, where you can
fucking rob your U-Haul. Like the fucking Dickie Dobbs let us know in the last show that we've been robbed. I'm not gonna get into personal shit, but and then the next thing you know, it gives you $500,000. I'm not gonna get into that. But anyway, continue. Sorry to cut you off.
So the point is, all our pleasures and technological services available today are
Hey, Dickie, hold on. Doc, steal all your motherfucking shoes. Why? Hey, Dickie, you a motherfucker for that. I just, all your shit. My shit, their shoes are $20,000. $20,000. But anyway, go ahead.
See, what's good, Jack? What's good?
That's not good. It's all bad.
You know, Jack now knows something. He thinks that's not good.
Damn, Dickie.
Well, okay.
I know you're going to give it back to me times 35, but it's all good. All right, sorry. I ate too much wine. Go ahead.
So the tech body gives you all kinds of ecstatic pleasures, and it also cancels the economy so that you get a stimulus check and you don't have to go to work, but we don't know how long that's going to go. But meanwhile, it also plays with your mind. It put Trump in. That caused Trump derangement syndrome in many people. They couldn't believe this guy was president. Then they put Biden in, and now there's Biden derangement syndrome. The tech body is playing with the whole information society, saying this is a fact today, and then tomorrow another fact comes in and erases yesterday's fact. So total confusion and Operation Mindfuck, we can call it, is happening through the tech body. And it wants to take people's power away, because when you give up your power, it gets more power. So the tech body is on its own trajectory or arc of evolution, which has nothing to do with us, unless I somehow can rein it in. So Paris says, does he think the tech unicorns were staged, or did Zuckerberg really create Facebook? Sergey didn't create Google. Well, look, all technologies come from speech. And speech came from gesture. So humans created technology. And the idea that some Leonardo da Vinci invented something, yes, he sticks up and says something, but at least the other inventors and other people and other creativity. So right now we're inventing all kinds of things in our speech unwittingly, because all invention comes from our words. Words are the most powerful thing. Who's Mr. Unicorn? Who is that? Who wrote that? Paris. So you can put in any mythology. If you want to say locally that you believe in private identity, then Marconi invented the wireless. Tesla invented what he invented. Mark Zuckerberg stole Facebook from someone else, who invented those brothers. You can focus on individual identities, but in reality, we don't have individual identities anymore. We're all part of this hive mind, chip body, which paradoxically makes you think you're separate. You can always disconnect and create your own scene, your own panel, your own talk show. So the tech body even makes it glorious for you on the independent autonomy level.
So would you say, Bob, right now there's, the new wave of music, we're going to create our own music. We've been talking about this for years, making the angels sing. The new wave of music is getting popped off on a new technology called TikTok. Every artist has a song that goes on TikTok and people make a dance to the song. So people make this dance and the dance goes viral and everybody does this dance to a song. So how is that a part of the tech body? Because now you got all these people doing these crazy movements to a song, and now the next thing, this song is the biggest song in the world. This could be the stupidest fucking song. Somebody does a fucking dance to it, and it goes viral, and next thing you know, the lyrics could be the stupidest fucking lyrics I've ever heard in my life, but now it's a #1 hit. Talk about that.
Because we don't know what's up. We don't know how to judge things. We don't know what's good. So the most basic, primitive, simple caveman communication becomes the norm. It's a gold standard of preference, and where everybody can get behind if it's fucking incredibly simple. So we're going to be in public performances, and it's going to be simpler and simpler and simpler, while our lives get more complex and confused because the tech body is going inside you and making you incapable of thinking clearly. So this is a very bad situation.
Very bad.
General, as a very good situation, and that's why we can't tell which is winning, so we don't know what's good, and that is a very stressful situation for everybody. And I hope to alleviate that stress with what I'm bringing in as an antidote to all this crazy.
You're in control. You're in control now, and I know you got 2 minutes left. I don't want to keep giving people too much. I think we've touched on a ton of topics right now, and I think people. you know, we have a good number of people that have been on this whole time, right?
Good.
Tits and ass, all that's left.
And
So,
like this,
Bob,
this thing does not end. Listen to the old shows if you want to be super informed, but just come back, remember what you heard today, and join us in the 2 weeks where we continue the same inquiry.
Paris says, Jack, be this dude's campaign manager 2024. What's up? Hey, Paris, what you don't know, Bob's already in control. He's running this shit right now. Hey, Paris. Biden is out, Bob is in.
Let me tell you what's going to happen. They're going to do a 25th Amendment on Biden for being incompetent. Then they'll put Kamala in, and she'll be president for a couple of months. And then they'll impeach her for her terrible actions in California when she was governor and all that, or whatever she was, attorney general. And then Pelosi, whose father was the top mafia guy in Baltimore, and then
wait. Hey, Bob, let's talk about that. Because, you know, you and I got this connection. I'm from Baltimore.
Yeah.
So Pelosi's will come in. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry.
So what
anybody that wants to know, shout out Snoop Dogg. I'm giving you free publicity. That's why this is what this podcast is brought to you by, because that's how I've been drinking. It's called 19 Crimes. Bob, we need to start our own wine. We need to start our own wine called What's Good?
With a question mark. Yeah.
What's good? This shit is what's good. Hey, Dickie Dobbs, Carolyn, Ion, Jermaine, we need to start our own wine company called What's Good? Red wine. Okay. For the blood, lamb's blood.
Before I forget what we were saying.
My bad. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, Pelosi. So if you look up Pelosi, her history,
stop it.
She has a name like D'Alessandro. She's an Italian from Baltimore. And her father was mayor of Baltimore way back there in the 20s and 30s. And as mayor of Baltimore, he sold heroin to the mafia. So a famous really, as mayor in Baltimore. And so a famous journalist, H.L. Mencken, Mencken, he's a famous guy, look him up. He and another journalist investigated Mr. D'Alessandro, Mayor D'Alessandro, and they got on him so much that he left his position and ran to San Francisco across the continent. And back then, it was a less communicating instant society, so you could get to another part of the country. No one knew who you were. He became mayor of San Francisco.
Wow.
He was this mafia guy. And he had a daughter named Nancy D'Alessandro, who married a Pelosi, but she was slotted into the Democratic Party when she was under teen, like 9, 10, 11 years old. She's part of the politics, and she rises up as a bureaucratic teenager in the party in San Francisco, and now she's ahead of it, and she's going to become president once Kamala Harris is kicked out, impeached. Okay, so
Bob, would you bet your? I got a question. Would you bet your $1 trillion net worth on this?
Of course. All right, wow. I already did. So I've been saying it for a week or so. But the point is, Pelosi will be president for 30 minutes, and then there's going to be a convention of governors, which you're beginning to see now, with Florida and Texas refusing to listen to Washington. So there's going to be a fragmentation of the states. They'll get together, and then they'll determine that there has to be a constitutional convention. And out of the new structure of so-called rules that they'll create, Trump will be viceroy, and Trump will be back. And a lot of people like Trump will be quite happy. That's what the tech body's going to do to us.
Wow. Hey, look, these numbers are going up on these conversations. Goddamn, Bob, whatever we saying, the numbers is going up. I think, should we keep it going, or should we stop it right now?
Let's leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that. Hey, this is
another. It
almost
tells you.
This is
what's
it.
Up.
It tells you what's good. Welcome, another episode, Step Back with Jack podcast with my brother, Bob, Trillionaire Bob, and my brother, Dickie. The guitar boys are here. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we here. And guitars in the air. Throw your motherfucking hands up. 'Cause guitars in the air, Bob, where you gone? And that is another episode of Step Back with Jack podcast. Hey, you know Bones, you're right. This shit is underrated. But you know what? It's not for everybody. Everybody that's here, I appreciate everybody for joining. This has been another Friday with Step Back with Jack podcast. Trillionaire Bob and our brother, Dickie Dobbs, Dick Dobbs, a.k.a. I am on. And we outro.